July, high noon, 116th Street and 8th Avenue. The concrete is baking under the New York sun. The air smells like exhaust fumes, fried chicken, and imminent violence. Freeze it right here. Look at the man on the pavement. He's 260 pounds of muscle, arrogance, and bad intentions. They call him Tango. He's the kind of guy who sucks the oxygen out of a room just by standing in the doorway. He's laughing. He's got his crew behind him. He feels like a god because in Harlem, fear is the only currency that matters, and right now he thinks he's the richest man in town. Now look at the man walking toward him. He's smaller, compact, dressed not like a pimp, but like a businessman. A conservative suit, a tie knotted with mathematical precision. He isn't running, he isn't shouting, he isn't looking around for the police. His name is Frank Lucas. And in exactly 4 seconds, the man on the ground, Tango, is going to be dead. Not in a dark alley, not in a basement, but here, in front of 50 witnesses, in front of the old ladies with their groceries, in front of the kids playing stickball. Frank Lucas is about to commit a murder so brazen, so cold, and so public that it will freeze the blood of every hustler in New York City. He isn't just pulling a trigger, he is signing a declaration of war. He is explaining without a single spoken word that the old Harlem is gone. Tango thinks this is a negotiation. He thinks he's about to get paid. But what Tango doesn't know is that he's already a ghost. To understand why a man would execute another man in broad daylight, you have to understand the vacuum. It's the late 1960s. Bumpy Johnson, the godfather of Harlem, the man who held the keys to the city for decades, is gone. When a king dies, the jungle doesn't mourn. It panics. There is a power struggle tearing the streets apart. The Italians downtown, the Genoveses, the Gambinos, they're watching Harlem with hungry eyes. They see chaos, they see opportunity, and inside Harlem, the wolves are eating each other. Enter Frank Lucas. For years, Frank was the shadow. He was Bumpy's driver, his collector, his student. He walked 3 steps behind the master, listening, learning, absorbing the philosophy of power. He learned that noise brings heat, but silence brings wealth. But when Bumpy died, nobody looked at Frank and saw a boss. They saw a country boy. Frank had brought his family up from North Carolina, the country boys. They were different. They didn't dress in the flashy, loud zoot suits of the local hustlers. They were quiet. They were polite. They kept to themselves. To the established street guys, Frank's crew looked like easy pickings, yokels, tourists in a war zone. They mistook silence for weakness. And in the underworld, if you look weak, you are food. Frank was trying to build an empire based on a new model. Direct supply, better product, blue magic. He was bypassing the Italian middlemen, flying directly to Southeast Asia to get the purest heroin the streets had ever seen. He was building a Fortune 500 company in the middle of the ghetto. But you can't build a skyscraper if the foundation is being chipped away by rats. The local hustlers saw Frank's operation starting to move. They saw the money coming in, and they got jealous. They got greedy. They decided it was time to impose a tax on the country boys. They thought they could bully Frank Lucas. They thought he was just a driver who got lucky. They were wrong. It started with a whisper, then a shout. Tango, a local heavy, a bald-headed giant who made his living terrorizing the smaller dealers. Tango was loud. He was flashy. He was everything Frank Lucas despised. Tango controlled a few prime blocks, and he saw Frank's brothers moving product near his territory. Tango didn't see an organization, he saw prey. He approached one of the brothers. He didn't ask for a cut. He demanded a tribute. "You want to operate here?" Tango said, spitting on the ground. "You pay the toll. This is my street. You country bumpkins don't run nothing here." He humiliated them. He slapped the product out of their hands. He laughed. It was a performance. Tango needed everyone to see that he was the alpha dog. He needed the street to know that these newcomers from the South were beneath him. Word got back to Frank. Now, most men in Frank's position would have done one of two things. Option one, pay the tax. It's just business, right? Keep the peace. But Frank knew the rule of the jungle. If you pay once, you pay forever. If you pay, you are a subordinate. Option two, a drive-by, a hit in the night, masked men, quick and dirty. But Frank analyzed the board. He looked at the pieces. Tango wasn't just stealing money, he was stealing respect. If Frank killed him in the dark, people would whisper. They would say Frank was scared to face him. They would say the country boys had to sneak around to survive. Tango was sitting on a stoop on 116th Street, surrounded by his sycophants, cracking jokes about the Hicks. He was comfortable. He was unarmed, or close enough to it, because he believed he was untouchable. He believed Frank Lucas was a businessman, not a killer. Tango underestimated the man. He judged the book by its cover, and he didn't realize that the pages inside were written in blood. Frank didn't call a meeting. He didn't scream at his brothers. He didn't break furniture. He went to his closet. He chose a suit. He adjusted his tie. He checked his appearance in the mirror. Impeccable. He looked like he was going to church or a bank loan interview. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a pistol. A standard issue piece, cold steel. He checked the chamber. Full. He didn't bring a crew. He didn't bring backup. He didn't want a war. He wanted an execution. A war implies two sides fighting. This was going to be a pest control operation. He got into his car and drove to 116th Street. The silence in the car must have been deafening. This is the moment where the protégé becomes the master. Frank knew that what he was about to do would change his life forever. There was no going back. Once he pulled that trigger in the daylight, he was public enemy number one. But Frank did the math. The risk of prison was high. The risk of death was high. But the risk of being disrespected, that was unacceptable. He parked the car. He stepped out. The street is alive. Music is blasting from an open window. Kids are running through the hydrants. Frank Lucas starts walking. He sees Tango. Tango is holding court on the sidewalk, a king on a concrete throne. He sees Frank approaching. The reaction is telling. Tango doesn't reach for a weapon. He smiles, a wide, mocking grin. He stands up, expanding his chest, using his size to intimidate. He thinks Frank is coming to pay. He thinks Frank is coming to apologize. "So," Tango booms, his voice cutting through the street noise, "the little man finally comes to pay his respects." Frank keeps walking. His face is a mask of stone. No anger, no fear, just focus. The crowd goes quiet. They sense the shift in atmospheric pressure. The music seems to stop. The air gets heavy. Frank gets within 5 feet, 4 feet. Tango's smile falters, just for a fraction of a second. He sees something in Frank's eyes. A void, a total lack of humanity. "I told you," Tango starts to say, stepping forward. "You pay me, or you—" Frank doesn't let him finish the sentence. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't offer a witty one-liner. He doesn't explain himself. Frank reaches into his jacket. The motion is smooth. practiced. The gun comes out. Tango's eyes go wide. It's the look of a man realizing he made the last mistake of his life. He raises a hand, a pathetic, instinctive attempt to stop a bullet. Crack! The sound snaps through the humidity like a whip. Frank shoots Tango in the head. It's not a wild spray of bullets, it's precision. Tango drops like a sack of cement. He hits the pavement hard. The blood starts to pool immediately, dark and thick, against the gray concrete. Chaos erupts. Screams. People scrambling, dropping to the ground. But Frank stands still. He looks down at the body. He looks at the man who thought he could tax the country boys. Then Frank does the unthinkable. He walks over to the body. He stands over it. He puts 2 more shots into the corpse. Bam! Bam! This isn't necessary for death. Tango is already gone. This is for the audience. This is for the witnesses. This is the receipt. He looks up. He scans the crowd. He locks eyes with the street toughs, the other hustlers, the people who laughed at his family. He holds the gun at his side. He doesn't run. If he runs, he looks guilty. If he runs, he looks like a criminal fleeing the scene. Instead, Frank Lucas tucks the gun back into his waistband. He buttons his jacket. He turns around and walks back to his car. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. The rhythm is terrifyingly calm. He gets in the car. He starts the engine. He drives away. Nobody chases him. Nobody writes down the license plate. The police sirens are distant, wailing in the background, but they are too late. The lesson has been delivered. The tax is canceled. That afternoon, the phone lines in Harlem lit up. The word spread faster than fire in a tenement. Did you see what Frank did? Frank Lucas, the quiet one. He just put Tango down. 116th Street, broad daylight. In that singular moment of violence, Frank Lucas ceased to be a student. He ceased to be a country boy. He became the king. By executing Tango in front of the world, Frank established a new order. He showed everyone that the Blue Magic organization wasn't a group of outsiders to be exploited. They were a military force to be feared. The Italians backed off. The local hustlers fell in line. The police took notice, but they couldn't find a single witness willing to testify. Why? Because you don't testify against a man who kills giants at lunchtime and walks away. Frank Lucas went on to build one of the biggest heroin empires in American history. He made millions a day. He wore chinchilla coats and sat ringside at the fight of the century. But none of that would have happened without a 116th Street. That was the moment the chess player flipped the board. That was the moment he decided that if he couldn't be loved, he would be feared. And in the streets, fear lasts longer than love. Frank Lucas proved that the loudest man in the room is usually the weakest and the quietest man. He's the one holding the gun. So ask yourself, when the pressure is on, when the world tries to tax you, do you negotiate? Or do you walk up, look them in the eye, and change the rules of the game? Because in Harlem, history is written by the survivors. And on that hot July day, Frank Lucas made sure he was the only one holding the pen.